Hey everybody, D&D Paladin and Jay's over here. Today in the DM's Corner, we're going to talk about the job of a DM. What is the job of a DM? Alright, today in the DM's Corner, we're gonna know what is the job of a DM. We're gonna talk about that because a lot of people don't know what is the job of a DM or think the job of a DM is actually very hard to do. And that's strictly not true. It's not hard to do. It's hard on paper when you look at everything you have to do, but once you start doing it, it's kind of easy to do. So everyone can do it. So, what is the job of a DM? Well, the first job of the DM is to make the world work. Most people think that making a world is a hard thing to do, but in reality, it's not that hard. I mean, look at yourselves. You're living in a world right now. So, nothing stops you from taking that and putting it at the right place and just making it happen. A world is anything your imagination can work, and it has the physics you want it to work. And it's quite easy just to figure out. We're living in a world every day, so yeah, that's what it is. Just make the world based on what you see every day or what you see in the comics or in the movies or anything like that. So it's quite easier than it looks. Playing characters, NPCs, monsters, villains, all of those things is also part of what a DM has to do. And a DM who actually plays NPCs, villains, and monsters has to react to how the monsters or NPCs would react based on the people in front of them. So, as an example, let's say one of your PC is trying to negotiate a price at the blacksmith shop. Well, it's quite easy to figure out. I mean, we do this in every day. We just go somewhere, we see a price, we ask him if he can go down. That's about it. The only thing you have to think about is how that NPC or that creature is living off that. I mean, yes, it creates magical items, it creates items for a living, but is it really, if it goes down in price, it's easy to think of the players, but not as the creature. If the creature lowers their prices, they might not make it through the years. And that's pretty much everything that you have to think about when you're a DM. You just think about how the world would react to everything that happens, and that includes all of your NPCs. How would your NPC react to the world around them? How your monsters would react to the world around them. Same happens for the villains. So that also is quite easy to do. You just think of the outside world, your world, and you wish you were living in right now, and that's pretty much it. Now you have to also react to the player's choices. So if a player just decides to simply kill the black shopkeeper and the blacksmith, the black shop, and if he just wants to kill the blacksmith from the blacksmith shop, that can happen. That will happen. But how would the world around it react to it? And one example I can give you is one of my players wanted a crossbow. He was willing to steal it later on, but the other player, that paladin player who just wanted to be extreme and all, decided to just kill the blacksmith and take the crossbow and then give it to the other player. Here's the problem. They were in the middle of the road, in a shop that has no walls in it. It's literally just a tent with a hole in the middle, and the shop, the actual forge in the middle. And there was two other people. The blacksmith had two apprentices, and guards were roaming the streets. So when he started to try to kill the guy, he missed on his attack, and that literally gave the blacksmith a chance to just yell out for guards. He didn't succeed in killing the blacksmith, did take the crossbow and give it to the other player, but the guards came in, and the other players all left him there. They just didn't want him to be there anymore. So he got taken out by the guards. And that's how you react to the world and the choices of your players. Players, you describe the environment, and players make their choices. You just react to those choices based on what would happen if that was a real thing. And again, that's quite easy to do. You just look at the world around you, and that's about it. Another thing that people thinks is that making stories for the DM is a hard thing to do. It's really not, because the first thing you need to see or understand is that you're not creating a story for your players. You're first and foremost creating the world around them. They are the one creating the stories. The first thing you have to understand is that they are the one creating the stories, which is their character has a background. They have motivations to be there. Yes, you do create some scenes, some thing for them to interact with, but in the end, it's not your job. It's not up to you to solve those scenes. It's up to them. So basically, you're just putting out scenes for them to interact with. And once they interact with it, you just tell them the conclusion of what their story is. So basically, it's not just a story, it's a collaborative story. You're all part of the same group, the same story, the same group story. And that's what matters. Some DMs like to make maps. I like to make maps. That's with what I start every time I create a scene. I just create a map of the place and with symbols in it and everything. So it gives me everything I need. Others like to prefer to have everything set up, their NPCs, their textbooks with text with all over the place and everything they need. It's all the way up to each person, each individuals. But the reality is, you don't need that much preparations. May it be maps, or may it be texts, or files, or whatever, photos, image, drawings. It all depends on each DMs, and that's pretty much the hardest part of being a DM, is preparation. And preparation is something that is quite easy, but we'll talk about that in length in another episode. Now that we know the job of a DM, let's talk about the flip side. The flip side of being a DM is that there's a lot of things that falls onto you. Things that should not fall onto you but will fall onto you regardless of what happens. One of those things is solving troubles between the players or between the players and the DM. Basically, every time there is a problem, since you're the DM, you're basically considered the authority in the place. So every time there is player against players or things like that, just drama that just stems from the game, you're the one to be expected to solve that drama. And that's something that you need to talk to your players when it's needed. It's just, there's no way around it. You just talk to your players. If you're not able to talk to your players, then you'll have a problem. Now, you're also able to organize the sessions. Your players just wait for you to give them an okay and just we're playing at that day, that hours, and they'll be there. They don't expect that. They don't expect to be the ones having to set up that game. you're the DM, so you're expected to set up those games. And that's the thing about it. It should not fall onto you for just that. This is a group effort, so it should not, but it will. So you need to be organized. You need to know what you're gonna do and when you're gonna do it, and you need to be someone who will know when the game happens. And your players, they will often just wait before giving you an answer. You may tell them, hey, that game will happen that day, and they might end up just waiting at the last minute to tell you they cannot do it. So you're the one who has to take the decision to actually play with less players or just skip it to the next. Which is another thing I will be talking about in another episode, because it's an episode all on itself. Now, the last thing you need to know about the flip side of being a DM is that you have to make sure everyone has fun. And since fun is different from each player's, it's up to you to give each player their fun. Now, those fun might lead to the first point, which is solving drama between the players, because one player's fun might not be the same fun as another, and another might not find it fun for it to happen. So yeah, that's drama you have to solve, and having fun is something you should discuss with your players. What is their fun? What do they like? Some players will create a rogue just because they like to steal stuff, so you have to give them ways to steal stuff. Others will like just combat, pure combat, so you have to give them combat. And others will just like to role play, and they will not care for combat, will try to avoid it every time. So you have to give them that. And that's the flip side of being a DM, is that all of those all fall onto you, and that's the real problem. Time to talk about truths about DMing. There are people that thinks they know what is the DM, or what is the trouble in that those things are just not truths. They're probably just made up things in their minds, and they just believe themselves into it. There are a lot of things that DMs are not, or are in truths, but a lot of it is just misconceptions. The first thing I have to say is that people think that DMs do not play the game. That's completely false. They are the game. If they were not playing the game, then there would be no DMs. So they're playing. And others will think, but they're not playing player character. What is a playable character? What is a player character, if not just another NPC? I mean, we have the non-player character, the NPC, but in reality is that in a living world, those characters have lives, they have backgrounds, they have everything. So basically the DM is playing with you. He's playing the world around you, so he's playing. He's definitely playing. If anything, he has much more characters to deal with than you. You have only one, he has thousands. The thing is, some players at some point will ask the DM for help. They will ask NPCs for help to complement what their group is all about. And that's when those NPCs become PCs. There's a whole video that I will have to do about this, and tell people how thinking the DM is not playing with you is just wrong, because the DM is playing with you. It's a collaborative game. He needs to play with you, and that's because he plays with you that you have a problem from the beginning. And that's why most people don't want to DM from the beginning. But that's why I love DMing, because I'm just playing. I'm playing the game. And I can create tons of characters, and I can try them all in every game I play. It won't matter. The only thing that matters is that I leave my players to do their stuff, and mine to do my stuff. That's it. It's the only difference there is between the two of us. Now, another misconception that people does is something that came from the late 80s and stayed that way. It is that it's the DM's table, so he decides. That's completely false. I did this for years. And I lost every single table I had. Every single game I had where I said, I'm the boss. You do what I want. Every time I did that, I lost my players. Every single time I did that, my table just got wrecked. It just disbanded. So that's just a misconception that came from the 80s, that everyone thinks, hey, you're the DM, it's your world, you do you. And if they don't like it, they can take the door. But that's just not true. I mean, it's a collaborative game. They're not there to listen to your bullshit. They're not there to listen to you reading a book. They are there to play, just like you are. So in the end, you should always think that your players have a say in what happens at the table. Because if you don't, that game is not going to work long. Now, Session 0 is... the last thing I want to talk is about Session 0. Everybody will tell you it's a necessity. But is it really? I've been playing years without a Session 0. I make characters with others, and people think that a Session 0 is just a group trying to find ways to play together, trying to do things together, and if it works for you, it works for you, and that's fine with it. You should do it. But for me, it does not work. Because a Session 0 is pretty much character creation. Character creation takes hours to do. Even more if players do not know the game. They will want to know every single option. They will want to know everything. They'll consider this as a video game, and to me that's just not right. So what I do instead is I will, before the game, during the week before the game, I will contact that new player and I will take the time to create a character with him. That's not Session 0 because we're actually not playing. A Session 0 to me is still a session, you still need to play. But we're not playing. We're just making characters, talking about it, and that's pretty much it. My other players who actually knows how to play, they don't need me to create characters. They already know what they want. They already know what to do. They don't need me to be there. Another thing about Session 0 that I will talk about is people do not trust their players. And that's a problem for me because I trust my players. I know that some players will roll dice or not roll dice at all and just give themselves the stats they want. But here's the point. If you don't believe in your players, then why are you even playing? It's what I think. Unless a player actually starts screwing with my game, usually I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I'm just trusting them. And it's better fun like that. So you don't need a Session 0 for that. Other people that do not know each other's can take a few sessions as well. So a Session 0 is not gonna tell you how your players will react to each other's, because that's gonna take a few sessions. It's gonna take 1, 2, 3, or even 4 sessions before you realize there is a problem with your players. And that's way far beyond Session 0. You still have to deal with that. So, is a Session 0 a necessity? Most players will tell you that it is. A lot of DMs will tell you that it is. But there's also those DMs like me that just think Session 0 are useless. They're basically the same as any first sessions anyway. They're just the first session anyway. You have to talk to your players first, and may you do it in a session or in a Facebook conversation, it's the very same. So yeah, to me Session 0 are useless. They don't have a need. But I will give you that. Session 0, in the way Critical Role has done it, is something that I am interested in, and in the next campaign, since my Friday night players are about to finish their first campaign, their second campaign, we're about to go to the third. At third, I will create Session 0 for each players, but that's mainly because I want to do a one-on-one session with my players. Not creating their character, not doing that. We're gonna actually play the game. And when we do group sessions, those players will actually have a first quest already done. And that is something I am interested in because it gives those characters an actual background, an actual adventure they did, and that nobody else knows about. That's something I'm willing to try, and that's a Session 0 I am willing to try. So, in conclusion, those are the things that makes up the best part of a job of a DM. If any of these is interesting you, then DMing is for you. And while all of those seem hard to do, they're quite easy to do. On paper, they seem like there's a lot of points, but you realize quite fast as a DM that those points are making themselves. There's just, you go for 1 point to another, to another, to another, and then go back up, go back down, and it just happens. So it's for everyone who wants to try it. Being a DM is not a hard thing to do. You just need some organization, good improvisation, because you're gonna need that, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is just you reacting to the players and the world around you. And as I said, we have a lot of experience because we're already living in a world. So yeah, that's about it. At this point, I'm gonna end the episode here, and I'm gonna say thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing now, just tell me in the comments. You can also subscribe if you like what you see, and hit the notification bell. I mean, it's that bell that will tell you when a new episode is up. So yeah, hit that notification bell. You really need to hit it. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time in the next episode. That will be next week. So, see ya!